Hello viewers, it is time for the final round of this season's Nations Cup. This one brings us to the only snow track in the game, Lake Louise, and we're going to be driving the Suzuki Jimnys. Now so far this Nations Cup I've amassed a grand total of 0 points, so we're hoping for a good round this time to cap off the season and earn some good credits. Okay, firstly jumping into qualifying. Now I've got to be completely honest with you here, I have jumped in with 0 practice, as is often the way with me, just seeing what we can do by trying to learn as quickly as possible. So this is my fastest lap in the qualifying session. So just for reference, the track is Lake Louise, the short version, and we're driving the Suzuki Jimny, which was just added into the game in update 1.42. Now as ever, riding the banking through the first corner. And then given this car's speed, or you could say lack thereof, this section of the circuit here is really just flat out. In fact, the first corner is pretty much flat out because of the banking. You can ride the banking quite quickly. And there is only one actual time where you need to brake on this lap. And so I'm actually looking forward to this race because it's going to be a very intriguing one, certainly a very different kind of race than what we usually have. And into this final corner, you kind of have to go and take this very weird, deep line beyond the bollards. And then it's a very tricky, long right-hander, which brings you back onto the main straight. So that was my fastest lap. We're coming up to the line now. And it didn't seem too remarkable, because it wasn't. As we cross the line, it's going to be a 118 point, well, we'll find out. The fastest lap is a 116.8 by this point. And I did a 118.1, so more than a second off of the pace. On this second lap, I noticed that the driver on pole position, or the fastest driver in the lobby so far, was right behind me. So I thought, okay, I'll sacrifice this lap, get behind this guy, and maybe I could learn a thing or two through this final corner. So I shifted down to third. You really do not need to shift into third on that turn. Keeping it in fourth is the better option. And as you can see, that Ukrainian driver, fastest guy in the lobby at this point, was very, very quick. I absolutely made a mess of that corner on this attempt, hence this lap also not being very quick. And so ultimately, after all of that, it was a very disappointing 15th, and I was 1.5 seconds off the pack. Worryingly, 14th upwards was within 9/10. That was an unmitigated disaster. So we've got to learn a lot in this race. So yes, this would be a race of learning. I had to learn very quickly on the spot. So we're going to jump into the race start. Here we go, 15th on the grid. As you can see, a very compact grid. And I knew that coming into the first corner, this would be carnage. Sometimes starting at the back can be a bit of a blessing because you're not right in the middle of all of the carnage and all of the chaos. So heading in here, I kind of got a sense that the danger would be middle of the way through the corner. I wanted to come off low. As you can see, we go in high and we cut down for a nice exit off the turn, moving from 15th, and after a few more moments, immediately up into 9th. So that was a very, very tidy exit, jumping past 6 cars in one go off the corner. Now through here, the Frenchman is just going to get bundled wide into the into the snowbank. There's no sand here, very much snowy place. As I now move into 6th place. So I've gone from 15th to 6th already. The German there going into the snowbank this time around. I'm going to lose 1 position and also gain 1. So still 6th into the final corner of lap number 1, a 10 lap race. So it's very much a sprint race here, I would say. A lot of FIA races these days going on for more than half an hour, but this one should be just over 10. So heading towards the line, still going to gain 1 more position on this lap as I get a bump draft from the car behind. And that's going to take us past this Belgian driver and up into 5th. So 15th to 5th on this first lap. This is looking pretty good. And we're looking for 4th already here into turn 1. I've kind of been pushed into it, so we're just going to go for it. Taking a very narrow line here, heading up towards the banking on the exit, grazing the wall on the outside. Not quite able to carry the momentum, so it's going to be a drag race here between myself and the South African, who is just going to nip past on the right hand side. And we've just briefly touched upon the slipstream there. and the bump drafting, and that is actually going to be incredibly important in this race, and it always is in a race like this where you've got so many cars so close to each other in a pack trying to bump each other. That is the way to kind of gain time in this type of battle. So up towards the final corner, lap number 2, really trying to get this corner right. This was the main corner, I'd say, on the track to get right, and I absolutely was not getting it right in qualifying. You can still see there getting it better, but still not quite as good as the guys towards the front of the pack, and that's mainly where I was losing all of my time. And it shows you basically the lack of practice was evident through that turn. So anyway, crossing the line here, 5th place, beginning of lap 3, just beginning to edge clear of that group behind, which is always good news. Heading into turn 1, big deviation in lines there between the top 4, all going for different routes through that turn. We're going to come off low here. Can we get the undercut on the way out of the corner? It's going to be a drag race once again between myself and the South African. We're going to try and give each other space here through this left-hander. Don't want to get pinched against the wall. Thankfully gives me space, unlike the Frenchman on the first lap. We're going to get a nice little bump draft there from the Ukrainian driver. He was very quick in qualifying but dropped down the order in the early part of the race. So he's not a bad person to have immediately behind with a bit of support bump drafting, as we now make an effort to try to reel in the top 3. Not quite getting the rotation here through this final corner. You can see there's missing the apex there most of the way through the corner, but now onto the main straight. It is actually quite a long straight in these cars, and so with the bump drafting from the car behind, we can just begin to reel in that gap. So we've got a nice big group here of about 4 or 5 cars, and we're going to have to work together if we want to make inroads into this group in front, because I just don't quite have the pace as it stands at the moment to catch them purely on merit. We're going to have to work together and be a bit more clever about it. So the guys in front, you see, evidently fighting quite a lot, and that's going to lose them quite a lot of time. The Frenchman here coming off of turn 1 with a poor run, poor amount of momentum, and we're going to be able to capitalise on that with a good run out of the first corner. That is such a crucial turn because of the exit really determines your speed all the way up this part of the track, and it is flat out up here, just 70 miles an hour as we go over the crest of the hill. So now up into 3rd place, a new high watermark for this one. We seem to be slowly but surely moving up the order, and I would say after qualifying I was very sort of surprised to find myself this high up, given that I was 1.5 seconds off the pace in that qualifying session. So now onto the straight once again, just trying to get into the toe of the cars in front, and I managed to do it. So the car, the Frenchman there, getting caught out in the dry and not able to get any speed and any impetus to keep his position. Look at this massive bump draft now, looking for the lead of the race, moving into 1st place, going in perhaps a little bit too narrow there. We'll see how that pays off on the exit of the corner. As you can see, go in very hard and then you get a poor exit, so you have to be really careful about that. Moving back to 3rd, that's okay. I'm going to try and get this bump draft from the car behind, which is really important. So I'm a bit of a precarious position here. So yes, I'm in 3rd, that's not too bad. But if I make any silly mistakes, I'm immediately down to 7th, because this is a very close-knit battle towards the front. A very exciting race, and this one seemed like it could go really any way, as I'm going to try and reassert ourselves into 3rd place here and just make sure we get a good run through this final turn. Lap number 5, nearly halfway into the race, trying to hit the apex there for the first time actually, and we managed to do it. So it's only taken us 5 laps to actually take that corner properly, amazingly enough. We now have the German behind, who is going to take his turn to give us the bump draft as we begin to catch back up once more. You see just how powerful and effective that is, as we are slowly but surely catching up once more. I get the second bump, we're going to go for it once again. This is actually a difficult overtake to pull off on any other surface. Going up the inside is pretty much a surefire way to overtake, get the job done. But on the snow it's not always as easy as that. So we are up the inside into the lead I don't quite have the run on the exit. It just shows you how important that is. So we're going to move back down to second through the left-hander. There's a car on my right-hand side. I'm not going to force him into the snowbank. So he's going to return back to the top two. And I've returned back to third. So it shows you just how hard it is to overtake around here. It's almost like you have to go up the inside at turn 1 and then kind of somehow block off their exit to make them bump draft you on the way out of the corner to assert your position. But it's actually really difficult to kind of engineer that exactly. So as we come through the final corner, lap number 6, 4 laps left to go. Look at the radar, it's very, very busy indeed. I'm pretty sure there's 8 of us in this fight for the race win. And so look at that, I mean, incredible battle here in the Jurassic Park liveried car. Thanks to the boys over at Jurassic Park for the sponsorship. As we go for the lead once again, it's a battle 2 by 2 as we head into turn 1. Can we get it right this time around? Lap number 7. I'm going to try and ride the banking a little bit higher. Is it possible to do? No, the Frenchman actually runs clean around the outside. Shows you the power of the banking. And we have to return to third once again. It's really difficult to get this move right. Perhaps I need to try and move to the outside on the main straight, but the cars are always protecting the left-hand side, so it's not easy to do that. So heading up the hill underneath the bridge, the gantry once again, the crowd walking by, surely oblivious to this incredible duel that is unfolding beneath them on the snow. So we head into towards the final turn, lap number 7. We are running out of laps here to try to get further up the pack. But this is once again very precarious. We could easily lose many positions here if we don't get this one quite right. So the German gets a really good exit. You can see he's on my right hand side there, but does not get the line behind the top 2 cars. So I've got the slipstream. I'm able to get back past and return to third. I don't really seem to be able to deviate from this position. I seem to be stuck here. So rather than go up the inside again, I thought, you know what, I'm going to stick behind here. See if we can try something a little bit different. My approach clearly hasn't worked so far. The Russian there going into the wall halfway through the first corner. And now have the South African for company just behind, not quite able to get the move done. So he's going to have to settle into 4th. It's all really a lot of change here. The German that was immediately behind me is now down into 8th. So it really is swapping and changing quite quickly here, especially as we approach the last 2 laps of the race. The Russian and the Frenchman going in quite hard there. Bit of contact at the top of the bank, at the top of the hill, almost going into the bank. And heading into towards the final corner. This is about as rowdy as I've seen it into this one. And through here, actually, the Frenchman pulls off a lovely move to thread the needle and go back into the lead. South Africa coming through as well. It sounds more like a horse race than it does a car race, given the amount of swapping and changing. It really is quite crazy. And across the line here, the South African not able to maintain that position. It's really difficult to sort of get into a position and just sort of keep it if you're not in the line. We're in the line here, bump drafting all the way into towards turn 1, looking towards the inside, perhaps trying to encourage the guy in second to go for it, but he doesn't. Holds the position, and he actually grazes off the wall once again. I'm going to come off low, see if we can get this move on the exit. Not quite. We're going to bump side by side, and I haven't quite got the momentum here to carry out the move. It's proving very difficult to move up into second. The top 2 are fairly firmly established, but I can tell you through experience of these types of races, it's about to get very, very rowdy indeed. As we approach the final lap, it's always going to get a bit more elbows out, and people are really going to assert themselves and try to fight for position a lot more hard than they have previously. So through the final corner for the penultimate time, really trying to get that rotation and on the power nice and early to get a good run and carry good speed onto the main straight. This is the last time we're going to run the full length of the straight, so it's quite an important moment. And so with a good run here, we're going to look to the inside. We're going to try and get this position once again. But this might be a fatal mistake as we've run out of momentum. We're not in the line anymore. We haven't got any bump drafting from behind. And so I'm kind of just caught out to dry here. And we're going to move down to 5th at kind of a bad time. Into the first corner. It's really going quite crazy. We're going to try and cut down, but unfortunately there was a Frenchman in right in my path and I wasn't quite able to do it. Got a bit of damage now. Front right wheel is damaged and the front bumper is as well. Into 6th position on the final lap, but there could all be changed still with one big final corner to come with about 20 seconds remaining in the race. You can see there 8 cars in the battle for the race win, and so incredibly close here after 12 minutes of racing up towards the final turn. It's really getting quite chaotic. Many different lines on offer. It's going to be the Ukrainian here. Watch this. The guy in the cream or light cream coloured car going to snip up the inside and just move up into the race lead. I'm going to gain a position. Can we gain one more here against the Russian? It's going to be a drag race to the line. Lots of elbows out now as we head up to the finish. The Russian's just going to get checked up there. He's going to lose momentum. We're going to move up into 4th just as we head up the hill. And what a finish that was. That was freaking insane. The top 7, well, the top 8 within a second on the line. Given that I had no practice, that is not too bad. That race was absolutely crazy. I want to go through some bits of that and work out what on earth happened. This was the start. I didn't actually get a good launch. But heading into turn 1, I knew that there would be chaos about halfway around the banking. I knew I had to come back down on the exit off of the banking. So I went up high. You can see everyone sort of collect in the middle. So I thought, right, let's just jump down below. As a result of that, you end up going past all these guys on the outside who have sort of been pressed against each other. And that gives me sort of a run here just to move from 15th up to 9th, just with that momentum on the exit. So sort of good positioning there, just to engineer a good run on the way out of the turn. I can't see anything with this chase cam. That guy just unnecessarily bundles him into the wall. Then I had to kind of fight to get past there using the elbows, getting the elbows out. The German there drove into the bank on the side. That was another position. And then I had to fight to get to the outside here into 6th place. This final corner is really tricky because you had to turn in really early to get it right. And you had to really get the back end of the car around to get the exit speed. That was a decent first lap. 15th to 6th. And to be honest, I didn't really expect to be that high up. I thought my pace would be awful. And then we get pushed one more position to get 5th after 1 lap. 10 positions in 1 lap. This guy pushes me again. And that was very welcome up the inside. So this is how we engineered the move for 3rd. It was quite far back, as you can see. The top 3 were just beginning to edge clear. The Frenchman goes quite narrow on the inside in the green car. That's going to give him a poor exit. You have to ride the banking, come off low. You can actually come off high, but you get a really good run here. And you've got to carry the momentum, use the momentum to go past. And that was 3rd position, which is where I was for most of the race. A couple of attempts here that didn't quite come off. Looking up the inside, you'd think that the inside is the best place, but because of the banking, you need the exit speed. And because I go in so narrow, I can't carry the speed around the outside like the Frenchman does there. You see just how much momentum he gets off the corner. That's what's more important. So if you're going to go narrow, you kind of have to block off the route of the other guys and sort of get in their way so that they bump you from behind. Wasn't quite able to do that. This was quite an interesting moment here. This was about lap 7. The Russian just starts turning left on the French guy, and it looks like he's about to put him into that bank. Doesn't quite happen, but it does trigger a bit of a moment here where we're all going to this final corner, sort of side by side almost. So I thought, okay, I still want the outside to some extent. Try and get the exit. Doesn't quite work. The Frenchman takes a really nice line to cut back into the lead. South African gets past me. Let's take a look at this. This is the final lap then. Let's turn on all of these, the information. I went for the inside. Going for my big moment. I perhaps should have just stayed behind. As you can see, the guys behind start bump drafting each other. This is where it goes wrong for me, really. As I'm kind of hung out to dry with no slipstream. Down into 6th place by this point. And you can see just how many... Well, you can't really see. You can see here just how many different lines we've got going on. So some of us are going high. 2 in the middle. This guy going very low. This guy in the sort of cream coloured car who ends up winning this one. So let's find out how that happens. Unfortunately here, I tried to come down and get a low exit. Unfortunately, the French player was in the way. I couldn't quite manage to do that. I mean, not his fault. He's entitled to be there, but unfortunately that just cut off the exit speed and I just couldn't quite get it. I had damage at this point as well. So let's see how this guy wins it. He's in 4th place at the moment, and there's 1 corner remaining. I thought it was all done by this point. The Russian in the lead looks in a fairly okay lead, though we are beginning to catch up at this point. So let's see what happens here. South African was quite aggressive, and he's going to get pushed up the inside. So those two fight on the outside, and they all kind of make contact there, and they all end up going wide, and he just nips up the inside. Really precise driving, bit of contact on the exit. Just engineers that position really well. And then it's a drag race between everyone behind. Look at that. I'm in amongst it, but not quite enough. And he has to fight his position a little bit towards the line. Let's take a look at this. So it's getting very close up to the finish. There is the finish. So it actually says, look above me there. It says I'm in 3rd. That's how close it was. I actually finished 4th, apparently. That's the top 3. I definitely didn't finish 3rd because you can see I'm over there. Top 3 side by side across the finish line at the top of this hill. Just ahead of the Russian player here, who was in the lead going into the final corner. But you see there, that is the top 7, all in one screenshot. Top 8, actually. We all finished within 0.7 of a second after all of that. So an absolutely insane final round here. It took us a while to really get going in this one, but thankfully I was able to fight for the win towards the end. I do hope it's not too long until the next season of Manufacturers and Nations Cup. Sometimes there's a gap of a couple of weeks or maybe a month or 2. So let's hope Polyphony don't take too long, because it is always good to have Nations Cup and Manufacturers rounds to do. Let me know your thoughts on this one, guys. Thank you so much for watching as ever. Just want to thank everyone who has purchased the merch. It is over at supergt.gg. It's discounted at the moment, so if you want to pick one up, one of these t-shirts or a hoodie, or even some socks, then do head over there. In the meantime, everyone, thank you so much for watching. Have an amazing day. I'll catch you next time. Goodbye.